advantages of the systems, reaching more than 95% of solar fraction in your region, and getting solar yields more than 750 kilowatt hours per square meter collector area and year. This is essential of our project, and one of the outcomes, having the monitoring results, having detailed information about operation of the systems, we can also prove the benefit of the systems. And using these key factors for creating benchmarks, which is very evident to have these benchmarks to compare new installation if they can meet the requirements. We can use also this data for training activities in theoretical courses to improve the knowledge and experience of our participants. And as a main result of all our demonstration systems, we can figure out this specific solar yield, which can be easily achieved in your region, of 755 kilowatt hours per square meter and year. And this is much, much higher than you will gain with 1 square meter of PV modules. Another benchmark that can be used by technicians, plumbers, also beneficiaries, you can expect a daily solar yield with about 2 kilowatt hours per square meter and day. Having this calculation, having this information, you can easily design your solar system to your needs. On the other side, we can also prove the solar savings, the energy savings, which are within the installed collector area more than 6,700 megawatt per year, megawatt hours per year. And this is related to electricity savings more than 7,400 megawatt hours. On the other side, we know we have also challenges. There is a lot improvements has to be done. There is still a lack of knowledge. Beneficiaries, clients struggle sometimes to decide between solar thermal and PV, photovoltaic. So the difference is not always clear. There is a big lack of skills of technicians and plumbers, and much more training is required to overcome this issue. Knowing that nearly no production of components is happening in Africa, all components are mainly imported from Asia or Europe. There is always not the availability of required products secured. Renewable energies compete each other, which should not be the case. We should work together. And solar thermal has a good solution. It's the PVT collector. Combine solar thermal and PV using the same space. We have also figured out projects should end up with high solar fraction, because then you don't need any capacity for backup. Other challenges is, we know, it has to be done with maintenance. This is an important factor. You don't need a lot of maintenance for solar thermal system, but a little bit of maintenance is required. And if clients, beneficiaries neglect to maintain the systems, this has consequential results or damages on the system. And the last point, regulation and standards. which are not always in place, make it very difficult for installers, for clients, for beneficiaries to figure out what is the correct way. Coming on the other important part is energy supply, energy future, sustainable energy future. We have discussed this also today. And this is a very old slide, I guess more than 30 years, but it's still valid. And if we look forward to the population growth rate, it's predicted that Africa will double the population in the next 20-25 years. All other continents, we see the population rate will reduce. So we have also to think about really this important issue and to find solutions. I want to mention again, most of the discussions also on political level are related to electricity. And electricity is just, in this case, 70 to 20% of our energy consumption. And in this area, we are covering around 26% with renewables. More than 50% of our energy consumption is heat. And renewable percentage of heat is around 10%. How do we are talking about getting carbon neutral? Yeah, maybe we manage on electricity side, but we are far, far away on the heat side. We have always to have this in mind. And we are talking about climate change. I guess we don't have to discuss this in this forum, but we are aware and we know, and it's proven, the CO2 emissions are still increasing on a highest level the past millions of years back, and they will still increase. What was our answer? Having installed these demonstration systems, these systems will reduce CO2 emissions around 2,300 tons per year. And having this figure in mind, because I'm always a little bit fighting with myself, is it worth to go to Africa, polluting, knowing that my flight is polluting or contributing also to this pollution? We have tried to figure out that the savings in CO2 emissions are equal to 800 flights from Frankfurt to Joburg and back. That means Wolfgang and me, we can go every day forth and back, and we'll have a positive balance. We have also heard, very important, planting trees. But it takes a long time to reduce the carbon footprint with trees. With our solar systems, they are representing a plantage of 100,000 trees per year. You can also burn more than 800,000 liter oil with the savings of our demonstration systems, or driving 14 million kilometers with a car. And finally, you can also charge 800 million of smartphones, but just for one time. Finally, and that's also relevant because we all related to business, economy. Everybody wants to earn his money to cover the expenses for his daily life. Saving the electricity of 7,000 megawatt hours. This will avoid cost on the beneficiary sides of more than 1 million euro per year with the old electricity tariff. On the other side, what was the contribution from Soltrain? Soltrain has invested in Soltrain 3, 4, and plus up to now more than 1,200,000 euro of subsidies. But this has generated a turnover of more than 3,500,000 euros on the beneficiary side. So also this is a big contribution in relation to the total investment of our project. And finally, taking the new electricity tariff, the existing systems will provide savings of more than 1.2 million euro electricity cost every year. So that's the contribution of solar thermal. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you for that presentation. Due to our time, I will not comment on it. Allow me to invite my second speaker and my third speaker and my fourth speaker so that they can sit in the front here. Then we have a controlled changeover time. Please, Madam, Boyitu Melo Bayekanya, please come through. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause, please. Also, I'm inviting Dr. Francesca Rosanna, please come through from Stellenbosch. Also inviting my colleague from Lesotho, please come through. Thank you. That's Seboto. Thank you. While it's coming through, I will invite my next speaker so that she can just take us through her presentation. This is solar thermal technology for robust mining and infrastructure value chain that empowers Botswana's MESs. Please, Madam, you're welcome. Come through.
Thank you, moderator. Good morning, everyone. I'm your welcome break from the technical jargon. We're softening the pace a bit. I will be presenting on value chains around the Solar Giza project. My name is Boitumelo Mbakanyi. I lead a project called Sustainable Private Sector Development at United Nations Development Botswana. I use this to... So my presentation will be two parts. The first part is just to give you a background of the supply development program. Then the second part is applying the supply development program to the Soltrain project. I'll try to do it in the 20 minutes allocated. So about the supply development program. So it is a private sector development program by UNDP, more than 2 decades old, tried and tested. Botswana was the first country to implement it in Southern Africa. It is a UNDP flagship program. We have at least 15 partners. We're a UN agency after all, so the success of the project has really come from the partners that we have, and I'll take you through them in a bit. On the screen there is our critical success factor. That's the methodology that we use. I will not go through it, but the key is it's a diagnostic model that's focused on suppliers or SMEs to ensure that as they scale up. So we are mainly focused on the scale-up portion of private sector development, and this is where UNDP comes in when we talk about the Soul Train project. We currently have 11 buyers on the program. 5 are mining companies. We will be adding Botswana Oil. They are not on the screen there. I've seen the CEO somewhere. We're in advanced talks with them, so it will bring the buyers to 12. And then we are in advanced talks with 6 more buyers whom I can't mention yet. So if you look at the profile of our buyers, we're intentional about the sectors we focus on. It is sectors that are value-adding, because the main reason why we have the program is we want to support the government of Botswana in jobs creation. So we believe if it's a value-adding sector, where once the suppliers, procurement supplies increase and so forth, it's a higher chance of them growing and creating jobs. So we have different types of mining companies, as you see there, and I'll talk about these when I link this to the Soul Train project. On the screen, I will not go through it. It's just the type of SMEs we support. They have to be 51% citizen-owned. They've got to be in the vicinity of where the buyers are, because it's also a local economic development program, so we've sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Besides growing the businesses and scaling them up, we also ensure the communities within which these buyers operate are also empowered through this program. Another critical success factor of the program is the faces you see there on the screen. Those are Botswana citizens trained by the program over a 4-month period. So they are the ones that UNDP uses to roll out this methodology in selected value chains. Our current focus sectors are mining, infrastructure, manufacturing, textiles, agro-processing, and so forth. So each one of them owns a consulting business. And as UNDP, we had an option to hire 60 officers, but then we thought it's also a way of contributing to Botswana. We're adding an extra skill to these consultants, that as we go beyond the borders now, we are able to go with them. So they are each one of them has at least 10 years experience, because we take them into these businesses. And we also wanted to demonstrate really that Botswana can. That's the geographical map of our operations. We're intentional. When selecting a buyer, we want to spread them out as far out as possible, so that we know each corner of Botswana is supported. So as you see, there's a buyer, and then the suppliers, the towns or villages there, where we've sourced the suppliers from. The only area, and I know it will be one of the questions, the only area that's not there is the Khanzi Sabong area, and I'm glad to share that actually one of the 5 that I said I can't mention yet, we're having advanced talks with a mining company there. So then that bit will be closed. We offer 3 key solutions for SMEs. We ensure access to markets, we ensure access to finance, and we ensure increase in business knowledge. So the access to finance pillar is a big pillar for us. We've entered into MOUs with local banks, 5 commercial banks, and 2 development banks, and we've negotiated preferential lending rates for those who are on our program. And this, I'll also touch on it when I link the program to Soul Train. And under the access to markets, we have a program at UNDP where we support the AFCFTA. So as part of the sustainability of these SMEs, as we know, Botswana has recently ratified the AFCFTA. So we actually expose these SMEs as a way of sustainability for them to go beyond the Botswana market and really reach out to bigger markets. The impact on suppliers, we've evidenced increase in staff numbers, of jobs created and jobs retained, turnover increase due to the increased procurement by buyers. So when buyers come onto the program, they guarantee that they'll continue buying from these SMEs, because the biggest three issues that the buyers had indicated with Botswana suppliers was late deliveries, pricing that is not competitive, and inconsistent quality. So as we roll out this program, these are the areas that we focus on, and we are happy to share that indeed we've seen improved products, quality and processes, consistent deliveries, and so forth. But the most important impact on the suppliers is the increase in their competitiveness and profitability. So to us, that is the biggest achievement, besides that they also create jobs. Then the impact on the buyers is we've seen that there's less disputes. Those who are in the private sector in Botswana know there's always a big disputes around buyers changing specifications whenever they feel like it, terminating contracts, late payments. So where we come in as a program is we support to ensure that there's less disputes. So we actually facilitate regular contact between the buyer's focal person and our SMEs who are enrolled on the program. And I must say that, for instance, we have one of the mining companies who's on our program, Botesh. Botesh from the program has a policy now that when a supplier is on the SDP, they're paid, when they're paid within 7 days, there's no settlement discounts. We all know settlement discount is sort of anti-SMEs competitiveness, because usually at the time that they bid, they don't account for it. So the buyer, because we've improved this relationship, they're saying they actually do away with that. Usually it's 2.5%, so to us it's a big gain. So the biggest impact is that there's an effective supply chain between the buyer and the supplier, which is facilitated by the consultants whom I introduced earlier. So this overall brings the profitability of the buyer, it increases it, enabling them to focus on their mandate and not have headaches about value chains. And I think the other big impact is the replicability of the model. Partnerships, as I shared, we do what we do because we have partners. So we've partnered with almost every agency that supports entrepreneurs in Botswana. They sit on our technical working group so that as we develop this program, so UNDP, the way UNDP works, we get into a country, offer technical assistance, we pilot, then we step back, then we hand over because we would have developed that sector, then we move on to the next space. So the reason why we have these players on our technical working group is to enable that at a time when UNDP steps back, there's continuity of the program, and there would have been ripple effects in the economy because of the program. I will not go through the strategic collaborations, but the biggest one that I must mention, because I know Soul Train was involved, we've supported our implementing partner, the Botswana Chamber of Mines, for the inaugural and follow-up local manufacturing summit, which was actually hosted here. And we invited Soul Train to be one of the presenters to share with the stakeholders and policymakers on the potential of the Soul Train and the solar geysers, because we figured almost every stakeholder that Soul Train is targeting would be in the same room. And with the local manufacturing summit, 3 key outcomes, 3 gaps where quality was shared, that is, Botswana SMEs still lack in that space, intellectual property, access to finance, and access to markets. So our programming post the summit is focused on those pillars so that we close it. We also are partnering with the Ministry of Finance on the inaugural Financial Inclusion Summit, which we started off as roundtables, and I know at the roundtables we also had Soul Train come in to present, because we believe that as a partner, it's important that they familiar. So in that room, it was policymakers and so forth. So at this summit, we hope that the issues around SMEs financing, especially issues around credit guarantee and making financing available. The resident rep of the UNDP always says there's lots of capital. The issue is bankability. Do we have, we need to package our projects and SMEs, businesses, so that they appeal to those who have the funds. And I think it is really up to all of us. Then we are supporting the Ministry of Trade and Entrepreneurship, and we are about to launch this, the National Agro-Processing Strategy. As I said, one of the focus sectors is is agro-processing. So Botswana is big. There's certain sectors of Botswana, especially in the Kgantsi-Tsabong area, that has indigenous products, plants. So we are supporting SMEs on that value chain. But this strategy is a 5-year strategy, and we hope that it will enable Botswana to now, because it will be the first one that the country has. We hope that it will enable Botswana to know what opportunities are there in this space, and then they grab them. I will not touch on this slide because I want to jump to the linkage with Soul Train. And that's just how we do governance of our project. We have a technical working group. We do regular monitoring visits and so forth. So sustainability. The reason we're here and the reason why we are talking and we've partnered with Soul Train is because of sustainability. Professor Norris, yesterday I said prof, and someone said, but every second person in this room is prof. Which one are you talking about? So I'll be specific. So Professor Norris earlier shared that they've trained, Soul trained 600 trainees. Where are they? So this is where, now the other Prof. Kevin, this is the discussion when we started this partnership, that we have such a cohort, we have a pipeline, that we need these artisans to be turned into robust entrepreneurs, so that way we, even when we go beyond the borders, and this is where UNDP comes in. We bring in the sustainability aspect of Soul Train under the capacity pillar. So for sustainability of the SMEs on our project, we've partnered with BITC's Exporters Development Program. So those who've graduated are able to be exempted from certain stages, then they're able to access markets. We all know that the Botswana market is not the biggest, but if you have a differentiated product, innovative product, you have really higher chances of grabbing the AFCFTA, especially because it is the current bars. I've already touched on the preferential. So even beyond, to ensure sustainability, beyond these SMEs graduating, they'll still have access to those preferential rates for some time, because we realize that usually at the end of the 10 months, the 6 months methodology, the 6-stage methodology rolls over 10 months. So it's usually towards the end, that's when the funding is needed, because the business would be scaling up, and hence we have this access. Then we also in parallel run workshops, depending on the need on the ground. The last one we ran was on on HSE, apparently it's now the other way. On HSE, we ran a 3-day workshop. So what we do when we run these workshops is it's not targeted only to those who are on our program. It's also for instance, we did it in Palape. So SMEs in the Palape region were also having access to this town hall aspect. So to scale up the implementation, we're adding more sectors, and we're expanding our geographical stretch, and hence we've added renewable energy, solar geysers. I've already spoken on the local manufacturing outcomes, summit outcomes, which we are programming around. We also have an ongoing consultancy on a situational analysis on the intellectual property and quality management space of SMEs in Botswana, so that we have real facts when we program around it. Our other way of scaling up besides implementation is through linkages and replicability. So at the end of year 2, each buyer qualifies to exit. They have the right to exit the program. So then they're given the UNDP toolkit to be able to replicate it throughout the end of the rest of their value chains. We have another UNDP program called Youth Connect, which we now, so that we also add the youth aspect. So with the Youth Connect, besides the entrepreneurship aspect through supply development program, we also want to develop digital savvy youth. We want to develop community leaders, so those who are on our program are engaged in programs up to that effect. And also I've written application of SDP in the solar geyser project. That is why we are here today, and it will be in the next 2 slides. Just lastly there, but not least, we are partnering with the Ministry of Trade and Entrepreneurship on the AGOA. So they have the new AGOA. Those who are familiar with AGOA, there's a new AGOA. There's 5 business associations who are active there. So we'll be supporting transformation of these SMEs through the SDP to access the US and thankfully the RSA market. The scaling up, we also do it through South-South cooperation. So in the past 2 years, UNDP Botswana has been assisting UNDP Zambia to set up a supply development program. And last year, we met to also design a regional value chain program, which will be co-led by Botswana. So this is a great also opportunity for those who will be, on the program. And then with the support, this is also an important one on access to finance, with the support of the Africa Finance Sector Hub, which is a UNDP finance hub based in Pretoria. We'll be supporting, we've developed an app that will ensure access to finance, access to markets, and access to investors. So we hope that this will be launched at the upcoming Financial Inclusion Summit. So now the exciting part. How many minutes am I left with? 5. Really? Okay. So I'm told I'm left with 5 minutes, so I'm going to breeze through this, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I wanted to give you the background because the bulk of what I'll be talking about will be premised on the background. So the context of our partnership, so there's an ongoing UNDP Botswana and Soul Train relationship, as has been shared before. There's financial roundtables, local manufacturing summit, and the bankable proposal that Professor Norris touched on, which we supported as UNDP through our environment portfolio and our project to support this bankable proposal. Then the Soul Train artisans will be supported to transform into robust entrepreneurs with access to finance opportunities and access to markets both in Botswana and the Sadc region. The context from complementarity as well, I've already shared on the relationship we have with the bank. So the thinking is, because we already have these MOUs, so with this new value chain of solar geysers, they'll just jump, it will just be an addition to the arrangement that we already have, which is working very well because it doesn't only ensure that SMEs are funded, it ensures that the right type of funding is given to SMEs and the right amount of capital. In Botswana, there's always a cry that a bank, when you want 100,000, they'll give you 50,000. So we ensure that the right amount is also done. Then the target number of installations, according to the Soul Train bankable proposal, it borders around mining and infrastructure sectors being enablers. So this is why we've now embarked, as you've heard, on engaging the mining companies, and these are also key sectors under the Supply Development Program. UNDP, the Supply Development Program and Soul Train are aligned. So UNDP is present in all the 6 countries where Soul Train is. So the thinking is we'll pick, as we roll out the regional program, we'll also pick the ones where it's feasible, not all of them, where it's feasible, we'll roll out the same program against that. Then the 5 key activities of Soul Train in Botswana, one of them is training and capacity building. This is where we ensure, as the SDP, the sustainability of these artisans. I've already touched on the applicability. So the approach will be a 2 parallel phase over a year and a half. The first is we'll be dipping into the pipeline of the 600, the ones who are trained, the ones who qualify. We'll be bringing them now to scale them up, as I've already shared. The second phase, which will be parallel to this one, is there will be new recruits. So our discussions with the mining companies who are participating is they will nominate their staff members because we want to commercialize Soul Train through these mining companies as well. So they will participate, then train their staff, but the communities surrounding them will also be part of those who are selected for the training. And for the same principle that I shared earlier about the SDP, the focus sectors, and it will be a partnership-driven model. So we want a public-private partnership approach where it's just not government or private, where it's just both. So to be mining sector, there are 2 mining companies who have confirmed, who are on board. There's 2 it's actually 1 parastatal under infrastructure, is the Botswana House. I actually saw the CEO there now, the Botswana Housing Corporation. Then there's the financiers. So for this Soul Train project, we'll just deal with 1 bank because it will be a pilot. So we'll deal with 1 bank, which is also on board. We are talking to an insurance company because usually when we talk access to finance, we tend to forget about the insurance aspect. And the recent floods have reminded us how important insurance is for business. Then we will also, as part of the partnership, the certified consultants will be allocated 3 SMEs each. Then they will be enrolled. So this is where the regional value chain program, which I've already shared. From government side, the likely partners, remember the buyers mainly are the private sector, so it's a tech. The government side will be the Ministry of Minerals, who are already part of the program. It will be the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, Ministry of Trade and Entrepreneurship by value of value chains mandate falling under them. Then the Ministry of Education, vocational, I've just put a question mark because it's an ongoing discussion. Then the Botswana Chamber of Mines will also represent the private sector. Then the Solar Association of Botswana, who are also part of the Soul Train, and then the Real Estate Institute of Botswana, stroke Botswana Institute of Engineers, to cater for the infrastructure partnership. The ecosystem, I'm finishing, I know I have 2 minutes, yeah, I'm about to finish, moderator. So the ecosystem of benefits to the government of Botswana, they will be supported by a private sector towards unemployment reduction. They will be supported also towards local economic development. There will be a functioning ecosystem that results in relevant policies for a conducive environment. So the thinking is there's been great discussions, technical in this room around policies and everything else. During piloting, we're definitely going to identify issues that might have to be resolved to influence policy. Then on the side of the buyers, which are the mining and the infrastructure companies, there will be reduced utility costs. So we are talking to them to commit, and this is why we're saying we're commercializing the Soul Train. So for them to also adopt and use the solar geyser system. So it will be a reduction in terms of their utility costs. There will be effective supply chains. They will be part of the solution on jobs creation in Botswana. And then on the supplier side, stroke artisans, it will be access to markets, access to finance, effective supply chains. SDP consultants, as I shared, it will be a profile growth from new sector upskilling, then also be part of solution on jobs creation. And then the banks, obviously, there'll be a business profitability boost, and so forth. That's just, I'm not gonna go through this. I wanted to just give a feel of the likely value chains that can emerge from this partnership. You know, there'll be raw materials. I was actually, yesterday I attended the Soul Train session where I was looking forward to this manufacturing of systems can it be done in Botswana? So I think Prof. Kevin is also one of the areas that we are interested in, that what would it take if I know part of it is assembled here. So those are just a feel of the upstream and downstream activities. So the target results between 2025 and 2026, that's 1.5 years, is we'd like each supported SME to create 5 new jobs. We want at least 20% increase in turnover of suppliers, at least 10% increase in their net profit, not gross, in their net profit, and at least 75% of suppliers that need financial support should fully access it. We know that the issues around access to finance are complex. Sometimes it's the supplier themselves who are not packaging themselves well. So it is at least, actually we'll be running a workshop in partnership with one of our banks on just SMEs packaging themselves to appeal to banks and running their accounts right, because we believe it's such a huge gap here. Then there will be at least 90%, we want 90% of suppliers to remain a going concern. Of course, we want 100, but we also need to be seen to be prudent. But ideally, we do not want any SME that is on the program to close up. So, and that is the main objective of this program. Then we'll have at least 10% of suppliers who are enrolled on the program being enrolled on the regional value chain. As I said, it will be an economies of scale model. There's already Soul Train in Namibia, in South Africa, no, it's not in Zambia. Okay, in another country. Then we pick the same countries so that we are aligned, so they would be our immediate candidates for the regional program. So the last slide is just the funding model. This is, we anticipate, we're targeting, as I said, we're targeting 4 buyers with 15 suppliers enrolled under each buyer, and then 20 consultants. So we want to allocate 3 SMEs to 1 consultant, as I shared earlier. So the critical costs of the program are the consultants' fees and logistics, and the thinking is, and we're at advanced discussions, and partners are welcome, to approach us. We are open to partnerships. It's the government of Botswana, because as I said, now more than ever, Botswana is really big and serious about value chain development. The Austrian Development Agency, who've already put in so much, I was quite impressed by the previous presenter that from their investment of about 1 million euros, the output, the results from those who are supported is 3.5. I was expecting a round of applause for him, and I would like you to give them a round of applause for that. That is huge. That is huge. And that is really the reason why we have some of these programs. Then the other cost will be obviously the project management. There will be some way it's in kind. As UNDP, we don't have money, but we offer technical expertise, and we are positioned to direct, to say, where is the money at? So I'm looking at my RR as I say this, and he's nodding, so yeah. So really, that's it. So on that note, I think I've come to the end of my presentation. I hope I didn't bore you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that powerful presentation. I think my session, I needed 5 hours, because I think you can all acknowledge with me that besides the technology, we need the value chain. We need to bring our people to get employment and to sustain. And I really, I'm very privileged to be chairing this session. And I hope after lunchtime, I'll be there just managing you to be able to talk to her, because she'll be overwhelmed, and also to Rudy as well. So we have been talking about SMEs and domestic application. Soltrain as a family is stretching across, it was 6 countries, now 5 countries. We are growing, as been promised by the director for Sadc. We are growing into Zambia, we are growing into Malawi, we are growing across. So on this juncture, before we talk about how we are growing, let me invite a colleague from South Africa to talk about industrial application. This was across residential and industrial. So let me invite Dr. Francois. Please come through.
Thank you, Samson. I'm glad I see I'm not the only one to struggle with some names, so I'm also known as Francois Rozon. Today, I'm going to share with you some insights from the work I've done over the last 5 years. I was a beneficiary of taking some Soltrain training early on, and I recently graduated. No, it didn't take me 30 years to do my degree. I took a break and I went to work in industry. So I worked as a consultant, I worked in the resource sector, and also worked in beverages. So I'd like to share some insights this morning about what we've analyzed and discovered. You've heard earlier Wolfgang and Christoph talk about the importance of thermal energy. And if you look at industry, it typically represents about 1/3 of all energy consumed in most countries across the world, but it's very representative of South Africa. And if you include the logistics components, so the supply chain, the delivery of raw material, and taking the finished product to market, it's more like 50%. So it's a big chunk of energy. And as you can see on the chart, 2/3 to 3/4 of that is typically heat. And only 25% is electricity. And in a country like South Africa, where our electricity is largely driven from coal, which effectively is burned to generate steam and drive steam turbine generators, the enormity of the thermal energy sector is even higher. As we heard, there is a segregation of temperature in terms of process heat requirement from the lower temperature in homes, but in industry, it's typically very hot water for washing or steam for various processes like pasteurizing, and then it goes all the way to very high temperature for for smelting and or melting metals. What I'm going to focus on is the lower temperature of around 200 degrees or less, and that's what I focus my analysis on. And part of the question I was trying to solve is why are we trucking coal all over the country to power these big coal boilers, which are used across many sectors of our industries. So we first looked at, okay, what is the current cost of some of the renewable energy technologies which are out there, and how will the cost evolve over the next few years, to try to get a sense as to if decision makers in industry and corporates are looking at the alternative to what they're doing now, is what is the cost benefit ultimately that will be derived from these new technologies. We then looked at a framework for how industry would adopt renewable energy and sustainable energy solutions, specifically looking at beverage manufacturers, which is where I came from. And then we did a number of techno-economic models, so cost-benefit analysis, to understand where would the greatest benefit be and where could capital be allocated to. We proposed a three-stage framework, and you've heard some of these concepts being talked about earlier, and I'm glad it's actually aligned with the Austrian regulations, which is first start with energy efficiency, then there's a lot we can do with respect to energy transition and adopting new technology, and thirdly, looking at energy leadership, which is how do we make sure that industry becomes a catalyst to establish cooling and heating network in a regional and or a small cluster. So this framework then helped guide our research. And at the time where we started the research, there was very little done around the world, or at least in South Africa, in terms of renewable energy. Part of it was regulation. Industrial operator could not produce more than 1 megawatt of electricity on site. Fortunately, that was resolved or lifted in 2022. And as you can see on the left-hand side, that led to an explosion of what we call rooftop PV installations or capacity. Eskom is tracking it very carefully because it's not only driven by kind of homeowners, it's actually driven by the commercial and industrial sector with relatively large farms that can be as big as 100 megawatts. And we've seen effectively a tripling of the capacity in the last 2 years. So there's been a lot of investment that's gone there. And then globally, we've seen some large installations finally happen in the beverage sector with solar thermal energy. So on the right-hand side, you see the Heineken Sevilla milestone. It's a very large installation that provides 50% of all thermal energy required at the brewery. And that was achieved in collaboration with a number of organizations. And I have to admit that the subsidy level for this project was relatively high at about 50%. So there still needs to be policy and subsidy support, especially for the higher temperature spectrum which industry is requiring. Part of the reason why there's been a shift on the electricity side is because we started 20 years ago with probably one of the lowest cost of electricity in the world in Southern Africa, or at least in South Africa, at about effectively a few cents, US cents per kilowatt hour. And that has increased dramatically over the course of the last 20 years at a rate of about 9% a year. That's against the US dollar inflation of about 2%, so it's nearly fourfold, right, ahead of inflation. Whereas coal, while there was a big spike associated with the instabilities in Europe, let's put it that way, has recovered actually to about the $100, $150 a ton, and it delivers effectively heat at about $15 to $20 per megawatt hour. And if you compare that to heat you would get from electricity at about $85 per megawatt hour, you can see that actually coal is a very cheap resource to get thermal energy, and hence all these boilers across Southern Africa. The question is, when we look at this, what are the technology in which organizations are going to start investing? So this chart is a summarized version of key analysis, looking at different investment options that operators would have from photovoltaic installation to battery energy storage system to solar thermal energy systems for 2020, and then projecting it for 2023. And as you can see, the first year return, so it's not a return on investment analysis, but an indication of the return you get in the first year, what benefit do you get financially versus the capex you've put in. So for PV and battery energy storage, we go from about 20% to 40% in 2023 and in 2030, and we're actually kind of tracking that quite well. We're in the 30% right now. When we look at solar thermal, if we invest against something like heavy oil or diesel or electricity, then the numbers are very similar and actually make a lot of sense. But if we're competing against coal, then the numbers are not quite attractive. So it requires motivations that go beyond just the financial, and we heard about the imperative to reduce carbon emission, and corporates across the world and in South Africa, who are often owned by international shareholders, have made bold commitments to the world, and hence are driving some of these adoptions. What I'm going to do next is just give you a brief overview of some of the key decision factors. One is, how much is the grid producing in terms of CO2, and what is the cost of the energy from the grid? So in South Africa, 80% of the electricity is generated from coal, so that means our carbon emissions from electricity is very high. In a place like Ethiopia, or we've heard Zambia, where it's driven from hydropower, then the grid emissions are very low. And that will change the way you think about prioritizing your investment. Space availability, capital availability, third-party supply of, could we get independent or power purchase agreements or not? What is the thermal energy source? I didn't mention, is the operator using oil? Are they using diesel? Are they burning? Are they using electricity, or are they using coal? So some of the next chart is really to give you a sense as to what are people focusing on. And I've just put there 5 case studies to give you a sense. Energy efficiency is pretty much been adopted across the board. Everybody is doing something about lighting, cooling, and so on. Also in their operation. A lot of operation in South Africa put diesel generator, backup diesel generator, because of the frequency of load shedding. So that's been a big area of capital investment in the last 5 years. They've also started putting in large PV system, 4 or 5 megawatt for a facility. I mean, that was unheard of 5 years ago again. They're starting to think about battery energy storage system, but they haven't made a lot of investment yet. Heat pumps is part of the consideration. Solar thermal, more as pilot projects, like we've heard from Wolfgang and Rudy. And then there's other sustainability initiatives that are pursued. But generally, energy efficiency, backup generators, and then PV system is where the capital has been going. I just want to share one example of a facility where we analyzed the energy inputs and effectively where it was going in terms of some processes in the facility, and then where was the energy going in terms of output. So was it useful work? In most of the case, about 30% of the energy input was useful work, but a big chunk was actually high quality waste heat. And when I talk about high quality waste heat, it's about heat which is generated and sent to the atmosphere at about 70 degrees Celsius. So people are actually not using it, they're just getting rid of it. And then obviously you've got the low quality waste heat, which is at 20, 30, 40 degrees, where you need to boost it up. But the analysis showed that actually we could replace all of the coal input by leveraging the waste heat streams and feeding that back into the system and heating water to high temperature. And if we could change the process from a steam-driven process to a hot water-driven process for washing and so on, we could actually get rid of the boiler altogether. In a place like South Africa, there were concerns because you need a heat pump as a backup, and then your grid electricity has a very high CO2 footprint, and hence it's not a great solution. But for a place like Ethiopia, it is a perfect solution. So you effectively leverage the waste heat stream, you put heat pumps, you can complement it with some solar thermal energy, and effectively you can get rid of all the diesel which is being imported for kind of bottle washing in a place like Ethiopia. So I'll just leave you with a few thoughts. Industry can and should adopt renewable energy solutions at scale across the board, whether it's PV and battery energy storage system, which offer very good return right now, improving return and relatively low risk of operation. Where waste heat is available, industrial heat exchangers and heat pumps are a great solution, and solar thermal can play a role, especially against liquid fossil fuels and electricity. So I'll leave you at that, and I'll hand over to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Francois, for that presentation. He's just picked up just to stimulate you and entice you in one of the areas that we have been focusing on now in Soul Train Plus, where we are basically focusing on energy audits, realizing that you cannot just jump and bring solar thermal. You need to have done a walkthrough in terms of an energy audit. And with that walkthrough in terms of, so there is training going on right now in industrial process heating within Soul Train Plus. That is one of the areas that we are focusing on. So this is results of what has been done already and ongoing across the whole region in the countries that are basically participating in Soul Train. And we are expecting to influence all the other countries within Sadc and beyond. Please allow me on this juncture to invite my colleague from Lesotho to make his presentation. Awareness and training activities in Lesotho under Soul Train Plus. Please say Sobato, please come. Give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you, everybody. Like it has been said, my name is Sebota Mukeke from National University of Lesotho, where I work under the Energy Research Center. So, like it's been said, I will be talking about the awareness and training activities under the Soul Train Plus. This is how the presentation outline is. First of all, I will talk about us, ERC, and what is it that we do, and then from there I will jump straight into the activities that we have been doing under the Soul Train Plus, being the awareness campaign, dissemination workshops, the training activities, and then from there the gender activities. And then I will try to highlight on the demonstration system, just one which is installed in Machabeng College. Then from there, I will talk about in terms of the energy audit which we are doing in the hospitality sector, and then try to maybe take an example of Melisi Losh. So first of all, as ERC, who we are and what is it that we do. As ERC, we develop and adapt technology that enables smooth transition of sustainable energy systems. And we also try to capacitate the personnel or the people who will be working on the sustainable energy. We achieve that through mainly collaborations and consultancies. I think maybe I should highlight few work that has been done in this regard. I think the first one is development of community mini-grids. I think maybe as we have been discussed previously, mini-grids are normally maybe privately owned, but we feel like in countries like Lesotho, where the communities are really poor, to try to make profit out of the mini-grid is not the most sustainable model to do. So in that regard, we are piloting a distribution system in trying to lower the cost of the distribution network, where we want to employ a single wire every 10 system. It is mostly employed maybe at medium voltages, but we want to pilot that maybe even at lower voltages, because when you go to remote areas where mini-grids are being deployed, you find that the consumption is very low. So there is no need to put an infrastructure which will be employing maybe in a town. The other study which we did is electricity supply cost of service study. This was a study which was done mainly due to the fact that of increased electrification, mainly I think due to some households being electrified. It was found that as we electrify more people, the consumption is not tallying with the increasing electrification. So mainly you'll find that people will be electrified, but then they can't afford to buy electricity. So in that regard then, as ERC, we came up with a model to say maybe for certain units, 30 to be exact, the price should be low. And then maybe if you are a consumer which exceed that 30 units per month, then the electricity maybe should increase. And due to this, there has been again some increase of consumption of electricity. The last one, I think it is on just some grid integration studies, where we looked into how can we best integrate this renewable at utility scale, being wind, and we are also focusing on floating solar PVs, since we are having several dams where we can put those. And again, due to our terrain in Lesotho is not very flat, so when we do large scale PV, they consume a lot of land which is not there. So then after that, I think I will jump straight into the activities that we are doing under the Soul Train Plus. The first one being the awareness campaign. Under the awareness campaign, what we really want to do is to try to raise awareness of the potential of the solar thermal systems. I've seen that maybe other people, like maybe probably South Africa, they are now considering large-scale and industrial processes. But in the case of Lesotho, we are just starting in terms of maybe adapting this, and then we try to talk to the larger community to say, if you heat water using solar thermal, it is beneficial. And the integral part of that is the solar trailer, which hosts two systems, the thermocyclone and then, of course, the pump system. Then after that, we do some dissemination workshops where we try to talk to the community at large here again, but in particular those ones who we think they need this solar water heating technologies. For example, we have already talked with the hospitality sector, where we try to tell them about the project and how they can benefit out of the project, and then we will later see that maybe from this dissemination there are some initiatives of people who are already going to apply for funding. And then after that, I think other additional workshops which we are going to host, maybe we are going to talk about to the NGOs and the banks in particular, because maybe as we do this dissemination workshops, it was realized that one of the inhibiting factors is the issue of maybe the high upfront cost, but we want to say maybe to the banks and also maybe probably in this case the hospitality sector, they are already paying electricity which is too high, so we can bring them and then sit and say, looking into their electrical bills, they can be able to finance these solar water heating systems. Then from here is, of course, some trainings which are being offered by Rudy and Wolfgang, the first one being on the solar heat for industrial processes, and then we are having again the training of trainers, and then again the trainings on vocational schools, and the other one being on how to perform a solar thermal or a thermal audit, because that's where the main concern is. So these are the kind of trainings which have been conducted in Lesotho. So then after that, there are further activities where the focus is on gender. I think the first activity there under the gender was a career guidance, where we assembled the high school students from Chabeng College, and then we are trying to target mainly young women to say it is possible to partake in STEM, but in particular looking into sustainable energy. And then from there was again another workshop which was held by Monica, where again he's almost saying the same thing there, to say that there is some space for women in sustainable energy. So this is the system that I was talking about. I will just highlight in terms of how the system is set up. This is like a system which is built from a 200-liter thermosyphon system. The total water of the total capacity in terms of water is 4,000 liters, built from 20 collectors, and then supplying different buildings. The first one being the kitchen, and then again the boarding school. The main boarding school being supplied from 11 collectors, and then the other boys extension being supplied from 2, and then the other extension being the girls extension being supplied from 6 collectors. Then I think in terms of the cost and how Soul Train helped in this, the total cost was around 480, and Soul Train was able to subsidize that up to 40%, amounting to around 190,000. But the most important thing is the schema which is showing in terms of how the school now, having installed this system, have reduced its energy cost. I think the system was commissioned end of September. Then from there we can see that the school have been, in terms of the monthly electricity bill, it has been reducing drastically, and we are delighted due to this. And I think also the customer is extremely happy to realize such savings. Then from there, as I already said, I was talking about the hospitality sector where we have a workshop trying to advise them to install solar thermal systems. This is the Melesi Lodge, where they are already saying that they are going to apply for support. So then we try to make a very, very, very high level analysis in terms of maybe how they will be installing these systems. So this is a lodge with around 26 rondavels. That's where the people sleep, and normally it results into maybe high water consumption, hence the electric bill. So that was the priority in terms of they would want to install some solar water heater on those rondavels. So then based on that, we do it maybe a very, very high level simulation in terms of how much they could save. Based on this, I think based on the simulation, just on each rondavel, just put one collector, and then maybe like a 150 liter tank. Then we could achieve a solar fraction of around 94%, which is relatively good. So that will mean that mainly maybe their water needs are already maybe almost covered by the solar thermal. And then from there, this is just a diagram showing maybe how they will be benefiting. Maybe if they install this, it is showing that they will take around maybe 8 years to recover their capital. But having said this, there are more, I think, 7 lodges which we are doing a similar energy audit, and they are going to apply for the support in this solar water heating systems. Having said this, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Sabota, for that presentation. I always say to myself, I think our elders here would realize that Coca-Cola has always been advertising for the past, I don't know how many years. So the same thing that we need in solar thermal for us to be able to make sure that people are taking and are aware that there is a benefit in solar thermal. Well done. Thank you very much for colleagues from Lesotho talking to us about application within the tourism sector through that application there. Allow me on this juncture to invite questions, comments. I know people are dying and eager. So I'll allow questions from the floor, comments. No questions. Oh, yes, please.
Dear delegates, if
Thank
you
you.
do have a question, there should be a microphone right in front of you. Just tap it a little bit by the on button, and then you can ask your question. If you are struggling, kindly just raise your hand, and then tech will assist. Thank you very
Fine.
much.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, moderator and the panelists. I think this was an exciting panel. I have a question for each of you, but I think for the sake of time, I'll just ask one. I'll target the panelist number 3. You talked about subsidies on the applications that you're doing in the industries. So I just want to find out, why do we need subsidies when we have proven that the application has proven to be profitable, and the impact is very good in terms of financially and environmentally. So we can also benefit from, for example, carbon financing. So I just wanted to find out in that aspect. Thanks.
Thank you. That's to Francois.
Can you, yeah. Yeah, so as you see, Soul Train provides funding for demonstration project, and often that helps overcome the return hurdle that companies face. And it was the same, I guess, in the case of the experience in the brewery in Sevilla, where the return wouldn't have been compelling enough for the investment to go ahead. And hence why, you know, these program and the support is essential in certain cases. As I said, against fossil fuels, then the business case is actually quite favorable, and then it's really about awareness building and helping organizations make the right decisions. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay. Any other question? I've got a question for Madame from UNDP. This question, I think she remembers, I asked, I think last year, when are you coming to Zimbabwe? I was so excited, and I thought people would basically be on the door to try and say, this model, to me, makes sense. And my question is, when are you coming to Zimbabwe? I'm speaking basically to say, as Soul Train, we are a family. One thing I wanted just to mention was that we've picked leaf from one another. We developed roadmaps together in 6 countries. We did not leave them as white elephants. But with our partners like UNDP, who supported us to say those roadmaps must not remain as white elephants. Let's convert them into bankability documents. So I would like to applaud UNDP Zimbabwe and then UNDP Botswana that took up the lead to assist us within Soul Train to convert those bankability documents to, those roadmaps to bankability documents. So when she presented this model that she presented sometime, and I've been following her, to me, it just excites me. So that's why I'm asking her, when are you coming to Zimbabwe? I might as well ask, when are you coming to Malawi?
You are very lucky, because as I said, we are currently designing a regional value chain program, and it's super aligned to what I was talking about. And Zimbabwe is, UNDP Zimbabwe is there, so you will hear from us, definitely. And I remember you, when I was on Windhoek presenting, you asked the same question. Absolutely, we are, and this is why there's a regional value chain program now, because we realize there's got to be learnings across countries where there's commonality, where Soul Train is, because we are now partners. So absolutely, would love this to be a blueprint for maybe 3 countries, out of the 6 that, but I heard that Zambia is not in yet. I thought they were, but yeah, so 3. So definitely Zimbabwe, there's nothing that stops us. So you will be hearing from us, because you registered interest, and it's not the first time you are. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I got a promise. We are going into Zambia as Soul Train. We are expanding. I think the colleagues will mention in the other presentations. We're expanding into Zambia, into Malawi, in this Soul Train Plus. Madam, please, yes, go ahead. Somebody please assist us. We seeming to have a challenge there on the mics. Okay, in the meantime, is there anyone on this side while we're waiting for it? Are you okay now? Oh, there's one question that side. I'll come back to you, Mama. Just a second. Yes, please, go ahead. Yes, at the back.
Thank you. My name is...
She's back, yeah.
Yes, my name is Banusi Mbakanyi. Thank you to all the presenters for your very insightful presentations. But my question is to Lesotho. I'm just curious to know, maybe I missed it if you did mention it, the technology that you are using for conducting the audits. Our company did audits for Botu University here, and we are using a carbon track smart meter So I'm just curious to know what technology you are using for your audits. Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you, ma'am. Basically, in terms of we are not using like very complex models and all those things. I think the models which we are using, we got a training from Wolfgang in terms of maybe how to conduct the training. It is just an Excel-based program where we try to collect for each end use how it is used, and then from there we try to find maybe if solar thermal will be of value for that user. So it's not something fancy.
Okay, thank you for that. Maybe, would you want to add something, Rudy? Or I could add something. It's what we have done in the Soltrain family is that we realize some of the softwares may be a bit costly and on the lower level. So what the drive that has been in Soltrain is to try and develop base tools. And one of the best tools that we have been training around the partners through Rudy and Wolfgang is basically from an Excel developed system where we are putting our inputs as colleagues within that system. We are not yet using a commercial tool. I hope that answers you. Thank you. There was a hand at the back. Thank you. Yes, please, go ahead. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was testing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to ask questions. My name is Peter Kabelo Maimane. I'm from Bapoba Mukhale royal family in Bapong, South Africa. My question is based on artificial intelligence. As we can see that there's a word technology. I just want to know from members of the panel or from the company itself, Soltrain, how does emerging small IT companies will be given a chance to play a role in this project of developing renewable energy? That's the first question, how emerging companies will benefit. And maybe sometimes when you ask a question, you must even have a little bit of solution. That maybe it is better from the company or from Sadc countries to create a database whereby companies will register and put their project plan proposal so that they can evaluate and have an idea on how companies can play a vital role in this kind of brilliant idea of renewable energy.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for those, for that comment and question. But I'm trying to find who can answer to that. I'm not, there's a hand up. I see there's a hand somewhere. Is it a question or a comment to the question that has been put up? Please go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes.
And thank you to the panelists. My name is Robert Monaghem from the University of Botswana. I'm mainly interested in productivity improvement and optimization. So my question is to the third presenter, Dr. Francois. I'm actually a little bit worried if I heard you well. I think you mentioned that when you did the energy audit, I don't know whether this was for the beverage companies that you talked about. In terms of the energy input, it looked like there was 70% waste. Only 30% was valuable output that a customer will end up paying for. So I'm not sure whether I heard how your solution or whatever solution that we have is reducing those costs. Because ideally, the 70% waste, we are paying for it. So something needs to be done in that line. So I don't know whether you can talk to that. I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Doctor, yes.
Do you want to answer the first question or the first one?
On the first question, please allow me to maybe come back to you through the other moderators so that we can get, I think, from Prof. Kevin. Because I think there are presentations that have been done, and I believe there should be a presentation on IT applied to energy. So I think we can get a better answer to that in terms of the databases. That's why I did not want to answer to it, unless the colleagues may want to just try.
Maybe just a comment, is we invite participants to join training sessions so that they learn about the program, they learn about the solutions, and as part of that, you build a relationship with the Soul Train family, independent of which country you are in. So in Johannesburg, there are trainings being run for either train-the-trainer or specialized training, and if you want to get involved and get closer to the program, that would be the right place to start. But I'll let Prof. Kevin talk more about it. Maybe just to answer our other delegate. So in beverage facilities, there's two big demands for energy which have nothing to do with thermal. So it's to run compressors, either chilling compressor to get the water at 4 degrees so you can fill the beverage at the right temperature, or high pressure compressors to blow bottles. So you get a little a plastic preform, and then that goes into a blow molder, and then out of that machine you get effectively a form bottle. So that compressor is, as you can imagine, an industrial size engine that is a very big piece of equipment. And unfortunately, out of those pieces of equipment, you generate a lot of heat as part of the process. And you put electric energy into the compressor or the chiller, and you get a lot of heat as a byproduct. And that's where you get that waste heat. Some of that waste heat, as I said, it can be as high as 80 degrees Celsius, and then that can be utilized through a heat exchanger directly back into your process, maybe for bottle washing. And that's kind of the part of the energy audit and finding the right solution with the industrial partner. So that would answer part of your question. But yeah, the useful work from the energy that was inputted was about 50%, and then the rest was wasted heat, effectively.
Thank you for that. Due to our time, Prof. Kevin is looking at me. I think I have tried to manage. I would like to just extend this thanks to the panelists for this brilliant session.
Yeah, maybe before you say thank you, just to say to the colleague who's asking about artificial intelligence, that if you see the reports we presented, particularly by Rudy, on monitoring system, most of our monitoring of our installations are done remotely. We have remote monitoring. So if you bring a solution, like Rosan did say, if you bring a solution and a package into the Soul Train program where you want to deploy maybe remote sensing or data collection or apply AI, we'll be open to it. Even the SDP program that has been alluded to, if your SME is bringing this solution, then we can look at how it can fit into our model and contribute to the overall success. So yes, we are open to AI. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I was just extending a warm thanks to the panelists for the brilliant session. Please, let's give them a round of applause. I think on this juncture, because of time, the camera, are they going to take us a group photo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Prof. Motlanga, thank you so much. Such an insightful discussion and quite practical, I might say. I'm hearing of people visiting certain countries, Zambia. Soul Train should be on your way, and we're hoping that you will be adopting the solutions provided. At this rate juncture, this amazing panel will be taking that group photo. While that is taking place, we will be, or post that, we will be breaking for lunch right on time. I think the Germans in the room should be happy. We are on time today. You will have 55 minutes to have lunch so that we are back here at 5 minutes to 2. Are we in agreement? A yes? Is there a second? A third? Yes, lovely stuff. And then after that, we will be having a session on gender mainstreaming. Soul Train and gender mainstreaming. So please kindly be back here. We do have some honorable ministers who will be joining that session. So please do be back here at 5 minutes before the hour 2. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you've been an amazing audience. Please do enjoy your lunch. Thank you.